let it alone for a while.
But
Anyway.
I was sure when
Okay,
Jenny,
you're officially recording, so better better be innocent. I found out what the problem was.
What is that? A camera?
No, it's an
A
audio
voice thing?
voice.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, so you want to question me, huh?
It's interrogation
Us,
time.
Williams. So how was London?
Mixed.
Mixed, really?
It was in equal measure extreme delight and repulsion. And that's how I always have found London. When I lived there, it was better, but not by an awful lot.
Mm.
But you know, I lived there, I did it, and I do like to go back and see. Like I went to the Victoria and Albert Museum, and I mean, how could you not?
Yeah,
Just-
yeah.
You just throw up your hands and say,
Yeah, it's
how
got
could that?
everything.
I mean, it's heaven on earth.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. Well, you know, it's funny. The when I got over there, well, I had heard indirectly that I had some French and English blood in me, but I didn't know for sure because my dad died before he ever got a chance to talk to me. He had talked to my mother in a sense, kind of about it. But so what happened when we went to in '83 when we went over? Oh no, even before that, I saw this name one time. LeGon spelled L-Y-G-O-N.
Yes.
And L-I-G-O-N. They spoke do both ways, you know, they spelled it that way. But then when we went over in '83, we went to this wonderful festival that they have, the theater festival for all of the, everybody comes from all over the world, everywhere everybody goes.
Mm.
And we went
We're not talking
we went from
about
Toronto.
Edinburgh?
Huh?
Mm, no.
No, in London.
Oh, London.
In London, yes. And we went because the young lady had taken my dance class up at Kit's house when I was teaching there, and she was from Toronto, and she had just formed a unit in Toronto, and they were dancers and actresses, etc., etc. So she took my class and she liked it. So she asked when she got home, she found out that they had been invited to come and perform in this festival. So she called me up and asked me could I come and teach her kids something, and I said sure. So she had me come. We all went over. It was '83, wasn't it, Frank? 85, 85. That's right, 85. And I did a routine for them, which turned out to be quite successful, and they won one of the awards that they won. And so one of the young people that I met over there turned out to be a relative of mine, and she introduced herself to me. We were standing one afternoon in one of the places where you eat, where you have lunch and everything. We were in line, and I was in front of her, and she was behind. She was behind me. She tapped me on the shoulder, and she says, "You're LeGon, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes." She says, "Well, you're my relative." And I said, "What?" Blonde, blue eyes, you know. And I said, "What?" Although I have had some otherwise like that too when I was a kid. But anyway, it was so interesting. So she told me, she said, we're having a wonderful dinner for all of the people that are taking part, all of the different countries that are taking part in this affair in London City. You know, there are two Londons cities.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. So they're
I lived there, remember?
Did you? Yeah.
Yes.
So we were going to go to the other one where the city hall was,
City of London.
and the city of London. And she said, when you come over tomorrow, you ask for me and I'll meet you at the door, and because I want to do something. And I said, okay. So the long and short of it was that when we got there, and I told them that I was asking her name is Rose DeWitt Fenton, that's what her name was. And she said, she came, and she took my hand and walked me around this whole giant, twice as long as this darn building is, and said, this is my cousin from the United States and Canada. And she walked me, and I was just completely floored because, being raised where I was raised, even though you were mixed, you didn't mention it to anybody, or if you had some black relatives and you were white. Hell no, So I was walking like this. I was completely stunned. But she turned out to be really wonderful, just a grand girl.
I
And
wish I'd gotten in touch with her when I was
well,
younger.
I wanted you to. And what happened is about 2 years ago, she called me and she said, we have some property out of one of the places away from London proper, out in the country someplace, some great big mansion that's been there for ages and everything. And she says, usually the London itself takes care of all these old places that are so fabulous and so, because they used to have 1,000 servants when they were in the years back. See?
Yes.
And she says this one is being vacant, and there's no male heir to inherit it. She says there's one of our cousins who lives up in the mountains someplace. He never comes down, and they can't find him. And she said, I don't know who's going to get this piece of property. She says, but if I should get it, would you like to form a school with me? And because she was in theater too, you see. And I said, oh yes, that would be wonderful. But she called me about, I guess 6 months later and said one of her cousins had got it. But she says, but we have access to it too. And so she said, when you come over, I'll take you out to see it. And when we go next time, we're hoping that we can see it. It's a mansion, one of those old, great big things that they used to have. Yeah.
Now, what was I going
and
to
then
ask you
their
about?
last name, her married name was DeWint, W-I-N-D-T, Fenton, F-E-N-T-O-N. And she just uses her Fenton name. I think I've forgotten, one or the other. She divorced the guy that she was married to. She has 2 kids too, a boy and a girl.
Now, I've got to find out something you said a long time ago about dating yourself back to William the Conqueror.
Yeah. This is the family that came over. Yeah.
That's how you're related.
Right? What's my Lord? Who is it? What's his name?
The Earl of Beauchamp.
Beauchamp.
French.
Yes, that's a Beauchamp.
Beauchamp.
B-A-U-C-F-B-M-P. Yeah. Beauchamp.
Oh,
And she told me so too. Yes,
the Beauchamps of Louisiana.
So anyway, it's been interesting. But we don't contact one another often, but we do because she likes me and I like her. She turned out to be so nice, But the funny part about it is that when I was a kid, and one of my uncles, my granduncle, my grandmother's brother, lived to be 105, and they had a great big celebration for him at that time. And he lived in the suburb of Chicago called Morton Park. He had his own place out there, a country place, and with his own. He was a farmer. He had all this great, beautiful property and this big old house and everything. So this is where they threw this party, and so there must have been at least 200 people who had migrated from the south, and those who were still in the south were there at this party. And and I wrote about it one time, and I say that when I'm writing my story, that if a man who was making a movie was going to use an international cast for a movie had come to this party, he could have got anything he wanted because we had everything in the world there. We had blondes, brunettes, East Indians, West Indians, Africans, and everything. And I was about 9 years old, and I had other cousins, because I had a couple of cousins in Chicago at the time who were passing, when you were fair enough, if you could do it, you'd pass for white, because you get better money and all that sort of business. And this was a case of sisters. One was a blonde and the other one was, I think, red hair or something. But anyway, they worked at one of the most wonderful department stores in Chicago called Carson Perry Scott.
Oh.
And bigger than Marshall Field's even, And one was in the linens and one was in the silver and silver dinner and everything.
Dinnerware,
Yeah. And one was in
flatware.
Yeah, flatware, that's you go. And so what happened when I was a youngster, they used to come, my grandmother used to hold conferences on Sundays. And where she lived, she had this wonderful big porch, and she had a great big rocking chair. And my grandmother I'll show you her pictures in there. And she was the queen bee of all of the blacks who had moved up from the south, you know. And she was the head of everybody, see. And they used to come and have to report of what they were doing and whether the kids who was going to school and if they were doing this, that, and the other. And so one year, when I was about 7, I think it was, I was one of her favorite grandchildren. And so on Sundays, she used to let me sit in her lap and rock while she and all the kids would report to her. And then one Christmas, I got a rocking chair, and to be able to sit by my grandmother when they came on Sundays. And when I got it, they asked me about it, and the first time I used it, my mother and my sister came home and they said, "Well, how was the day? What did you do?" And I said, "We were shitting." And I couldn't say sitting. We were sitting and rocking. And they used to tease me about it all the time, you know. But I will never forget it. And my grandmother's hair was way down here. And me and one of her daughters were the only ones that she'd let comb her. And she'd fall asleep, and I could comb her hair, and it would roll it up in a ball and put all the pins in it, you know, and then I'd like that, and I'd look at it, I'd admire, then I'd take it out and do something else, and Grandma would still be asleep, and I'd braid it and all that. So I was her favorite grandchild. She was wonderful. She was beautiful, beautiful woman. And she had 9 children, and she raised them all by herself because her husband died. Mm-hmm. She had 3 boys and 6 girls. And she all moved to London. They were born down in Georgia, and they moved up to Chicago. And she sent them by degrees, so that each one set of them would get there and get going and done. And then finally, she decided she only had herself and 2 of her kids, her 2 youngest kids, where everybody else had gone up north, to Chicago. And then she decided that particular year, when my uncle was 7 years old, I think it was. No, he was 5. He was 7. But they put him on the train told him he was 5. It was his birthday, and he was supposed to not say anything about it. And he was 7, he was 5, and he was telling her, "It's my birthday." And he was 7 years old, and he was only supposed to be 5, but she hadn't paid for it. Oh. Grandma told him not to talk, but you know how kids are, and so he was doing this. So they didn't let him go. The conductor didn't charge her for the extra fare. But that was one of the tales she told me about her coming to Chicago when she first came to Chicago. But she had wonderful stories to tell about her life as a young woman, in the South. And she was a slave, you see, Yeah.
She had been.
Oh, yes, she'd been in the slave family. She was half white, black.
And how old would she have been
at
that time?
At times she...
I understand. And what year would that be, let's say?
Let me see. It was I was born 16, 17, 18. She must have been about 40, maybe 50 years old when this was happening with her. When she came to Chicago with the kids.
Yeah. And so that was when you knew her.
Yes. I was born in 1916.
So
and this was 17, about 18. It was after the war. After the war. Yeah. It was interesting. And my father was a Geese. They're the ones from South Carolina, who were a mixture of the French and African and Indian, and they, like the ones in the Creoles down in New Orleans, they spoke a language of their own too. And I remember as a youngster, my dad died when I was 5, but when I was growing up, when I was a little girl, as I said, my dad was still alive, and he'd get mad about something that happened in the family, and he'd start talking this Geechee language, and my brother and sister used to run under the bed the way I follow him, because we didn't know what the hell he was saying, because he was speaking this crazy language, you see, what they call Geechee. The Creoles there, that's what they spoke, was Geechees.
Right.
It was interesting, a mixture of the languages. Well, I never did have a chance to hear any of the words and understand them, because he died at 5, so I didn't understand what was going on. It was too much for me,
But
he was a talented person too. He could play the broom, you know, he should do that sort of stuff, and he could act, and he was an actor. He used to tell stories, and we had where I was born, we had a wonderful, great big back porch, and in the summertime, the kids would come because he would tell these stories. He'd sing, you know, and tell stories, play the guitar, not the guitar, but some other instrument. I guess it was the little one, yeah, and sing and talk, and he would tell stories. He could tell these wonderful, frightening stories, you know, real mysteries and stuff, and who killed who and so on and forth. And it would be so vivid, all the kids would be sitting like this, and when he finished it, they wouldn't go home. It was just beginning to get dark. They wouldn't go home because they were scared. You see, he had frightened them because he was acting all these different roles, and he would do all this, and he would perform, you know, and his voice would change, you know. It was wonderful. I remember it so vivid. And my sister and brother and my sister and brothers all came out musically and singing and all that sort of thing. So it's in our family. It was in from our daddy. Yeah.
Are any of your other your sisters and brothers alive?
No, they've been dead a long time.
Oh.
Yeah.
And the one that we visited when we were in L.A.
Uh-huh.
That was your cousin?
Mm-hmm.
Or niece?
No, that was my brother. My brother was lived in Los Angeles. He had a bookstore. He's the first one that opened an all-black bookstore.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It was Aquarian, it was called. In fact, recently when we were down there, we were down last year, and one of the young ladies that's been, she's a publicist, and she has, she's in theater and stuff and work. And she suggested that it might be possible for them to make my brother's place to revive it and have it a big thing. And so she's going to try and do it. And I had never met any LeGons at all, and I've met 4 of them in the last year. Really, they spell it the L-I, the G-O-N, you know?
Yes.
Because that's what I was for me. But when I got my chance to go in the movies, and the lady, see how I got to meet Jeni, Jeni, was Laurel Parsons, the lady that used to write on the newspapers.
Yes.
I got it up there. She wrote it J-E-N instead of double N-I-E. That was me. That's what my grandmother's was J-E-double-N-I-E. And that was what I was born with.
Okay.
And so when it happened, she didn't have enough room to write double N-I-E on it when I got my movie the first time.
Yes.
So she wrote J-E-N-I.
Yes.
And I asked Mother if we could use it. I asked my mother if I could change it to that, and that's how I spelled it. And that's the reason I spelled it J-E-N-I.
Okay. So that is the Jeni part, and how was the LeGon spelled?
It's spelled L-I-G-O-N.
And
some would spell it L-Y-G-O-N. And I made it Frenchy by spelling it L-E capital G.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
And if it is your choice, do you have the gap between le and gon, or do you put them together?
Mm-hmm. No, I like it the way it is.
But I see it both ways often.
Oh.
L-E gap G-O-N.
Oh.
I often see it that way.
Really?
In fact, even in the movies.
No, they just write it L-E capital G.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, that's why I write it. L-E capital G-O-N, LeGon, yeah. But the L-I-G-O-N is the one word, and the L-Y-G-O-N. And the L-Y-G-O-N that I told you about that's in London, that we saw the thing. You know what, I just found out.
It's a square.
But I just found out, remember when we saw this thing that time on the TV, when we saw it, I was screaming and yelling at you, this was LeGon Square? Mm-hmm. Well, I found that Channel 9 here did it, so we're going to write and ask them if they still have it.
That's good.
Because it's in London.
It's not too far
Yes.
from
Yeah.
Well, now that you give me the correct spelling, I'll look it up on Google Earth.
Okay.
Do you know what
Okay.
Google
Yeah,
Earth
because
is?
it's LYGON, LeGon Square, and it's right down off of the main street down in where all the theaters and everything are.
Shaftesbury Avenue?
Huh?
Shaftesbury Avenue?
Shaftesbury, I think that's it. Yeah, I think it is. Because see, where I live right near the palace. on the back of the palace. The palace is over here. Like say the palace would be on Burrard,
Yes.
and 2 streets over
Yes.
was where I lived. It was called Eaton Row.
Yes.
And Eaton Square was in there too. Eaton Square was
Well,
in that
that's well
area.
known, yeah.
Yeah. And we were in the Eaton Row, which was behind the square. That's where I lived. And we were in the places because it was adjacent to Eaton Row, because there used to be places where they had the stables and the servants lived. And they turned all these little in the alley.
Mews, right?
Uh-huh.
A mews.
Uh-huh.
I used to know people who lived in
Yeah.
muses.
And we were Eaton Row is where number 7 Eaton Row was where I lived, and it was right behind them. It's not where Eaton Square was where the end of the palace is, on that side over there. And this is Eaton Square and all that sort of thing.
Tell him about Uncle Walter when you were in London.
Hmm?
Uncle Walter, your relative. Uncle Walter in London. We went to visit him.
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. That was wonderful too. We were where do we meet him? How did we meet him?
Through Rose.
Through Rose,
Mhm.
my my
Yeah.
cousin. Yeah, this young lady that I told you that's my cousin Rose. She told me that we had a relative there who was the head of the family now, and she wanted me to meet him. So she told him about me, and he invited us to his home. And his wife was a artist who drew stuff and everything, and they lived in where do they live in? They lived in one of the big, very swank areas in London there, and we went to their house, and they had on the top floor they had 2 floors of apartment, wonderful, near the big, what is the big
Harrods.
department store, Harrods?
Harrods, I was there.
Yeah, it was.
That's near
It was in
Victoria
there.
and
That's the
Albert.
square that there. What was there? Oh, I got it written down something. Anyway, so we went there, and he's the head of the family now, as the person who takes care of all of the lineage and everything from back, and whatever money there is in the property, he managed it. He managed it, and he'd also been at one time one of the heads of one of the islands when they used to have down in the West Indies, you know, when England had all the islands that they ruled.
Yes.
Yeah, well, he had been one of the managers of that thing, sort of thing too. And he was a big shot right then. So it's been very interesting experience. And I've got the history of them. I got all the people's names and everything. And the ones that were my ancestors after the war was in England, and they decided, a whole bunch of the soldiers and everything decided to come to the States, and they came to the States and the Carolinas. That's where they came to, yeah. So it's very interesting.
You're running out of.
Huh?
You're running out of steam. So, Fred, were you? Did you have English background as well?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What was that?
It was my grandmother and her children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And did you know them?
Oh yeah, sure.
Because how long ago was that they were around? What did they do?
Well, let me see. They came over here in 1926.
Oh, they were over here.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
They were in Cornwall. Stevens was my grandmother's was a Miss Stevens,
Yes.
Ada Mary Stevens, and she married a Rosewarne, Rosewarne,
Mm-hmm.
and he was doing horticultural work,
Yeah.
gardening and that type of a
Flowers
thing, and
and
roses.
everything.
He was famous for his roses. So he was. She married the son of Lord Rosewarne. This is during Queen Victoria's time.
Yes.
So her first son was my Uncle Henry. Henry Rosewarne. Then my mother was second, Avenel Rosewarne, and third was Joseph Rosewarne. And they all came over here in 1926,
Oh,
up in the, near the UBC in that area up there, the, what do you call it, the lands up there, the
endowment?
endowment lands, yeah, right up there.
Did they retain their connections with
No.
England, did you?
When she left her husband, she left with nothing. That
Oh,
was,
really?
That was the problem.
Oh.
That was the problem. So she came over here with nothing. Yeah.
Well,
And then she raised the children here. Well, she raised them while she was in England, but then, I forget, I don't know the exact history. Up until, my Uncle Henry was born in 1908. My mother was born in about 99 or 10, and Uncle Joe was born in about 11 or 12.
and
She left
And she left Rosewarne.
because he didn't treat her well.
Because
Rosewarne is
the
his
son of
name?
Lord Rosewarne.
Okay. Oh,
And she was actually, was
Lady
Lady Rosewarne.
That's what she was.
Hmm.
And they have a certain section out of London proper, which name's Rosewarne
Yeah.
because it's still there, and all of the flower place, you know, and
Yes.
everything. It's just simply gorgeous. And there's a home there where the oldest of the sons of any of the descendants can stay there in this old beautiful old home, and it's off of one of the islands down there too. We went down there. We saw it. Yeah. We want to go back.
Let's go.
And they used to furnish all of the flowers for the palace and
Yeah,
everything.
that's how he got his
Just
grandfather, great-grandfather, did that. During Queen Victoria's time. Because you're talking about that thing that they built, that Queen Victoria and Albert
Museum?
Place, the, what do you call it?
Oh,
It was
the
built
Brighton-
probably during the time of Uncle Henry's grandfather.
well, I told you I went there.
Yes,
Yes.
I've never been there.
Well, it was a revelation to me because I'd seen it in the movies and it looked nice, but you don't really realize just how opulent it is. It's like it really is like it's like being inside a Fabergé egg, like being an ant inside a Fabergé egg.
Really, we'll have to go and see it then.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is stunning.
One of his cousins is going to come over. He's going to go. He's coming next month, isn't he, Frankie?
Well, Freddie, he might.
He may
if,
be able to
and
come,
if,
yeah.
if his wife is being ill, so he's thinking of coming over.
Well, he
for
said
2
he would
weeks.
want to come alone anyway,
Mhm.
so he'd probably be here.
Well, that's a good example of the sublime and the nasty. You know, you just see something like that, and you go over. It makes the whole trip worthwhile.
Ah. So tell me about London. What was the two contrasts? The contrast.
Well, for one thing, where I was staying was it was Finchley Road, and Finchley, that area is probably just one tube step further than what I would call the center of London. You know, so it was just that one little bit too much far away.
Uh-huh.
And because I used to live at Swiss Cottage, and many was the time when I walked home from Leicester Square.
Oh.
And it was a long walk, but you could do it. And, you know, when you're young. And, but this time, I'm telling you, what with the, and apart from the tube being so far, then I had another half-mile walk to where the hotel was, which was not a hotel at all. It was really a converted house.
Hmm.
And so the problem was that, you know, you'd wear yourself out before you really got to do anything. And also, because I had this commission and I had no idea what was expected of me, I really was nursing my energy and it was smack in the middle of my visit, 3 weeks. And so I nursed my energies and really didn't do all that much for the first week or so. Besides which, the plane was so nasty with the squeezed in like
Oh,
this.
man.
And so I really got no sleep on the plane, and I really got jet lagged badly. So one way or another, I found that I was spending more time than I really would like to have in the hotel room, and watching really, really crappy television. It is so bad now. In fact, even they think it's bad. They were saying, "Oh, take us back to the 70s, which is when I was there." So that was about it.
And then you did do your work.
I did do my work, and it was wonderful, and it was basically 3 days, and then afterwards I went to look for the dance studio, and they weren't going to let me in, really. It was kind of a gated thing, and so I phoned them up and told them the story, and I came over, and they said, well, we really want to be sure that you're really who you say you are. And I showed them the disc, and when they looked at it, they sort of beamed and glowed and said, "Oh,
Go ahead.
Go right ahead." And they actually took me on a conducted tour of the whole place, so I videotaped that.
Oh, great.
And so much like the grand tour I did here. And except that in that case, they directed me to this and that point of interest. And everyone in the Legat Foundation said, well, we haven't attempted to go there because it's so changed, it wouldn't be the same. But that they were quite wrong. There were a couple of changes, for sure, but like the men's changing room in the basement, it was primitive. It was Stone Aged. It was very interesting to look at all of these weird fixtures and things. It looked like it could have been a torture
So it was
chamber.
a dance group, it was a dance place?
Yes, it was Legat.
Legat's, Legat.
Legat, who had been the original in the original Nutcracker and the original Swan Lake.
Oh, yeah.
And he had been Pavlova's partner.
Yes,
And had taught Margot Fontaine, and
yeah, I know now, I know where you mean,
Maurice the whole slew, all of it, Anton Dolan, everyone.
You know what I was telling you about the black man who was a teacher there? His name was Buddy Bradley.
Okay, right.
You heard of him?
No, but you were going to find out his
I got
name.
him. I got him here. Oh, where is he now? Jeni, girl. Oh, here we are.
Oops.
There he is.
Okay.
He was from the States, but he'd been over there for a long, long time. And he was chief. At that time, he was top dog as far as dancing people were.
Well, this is the same thing, better version of it.
Buddy Bradley.
Turn off the machine, Norman.
What's that?
Claviet.
Well, I'm going to stop this and start it again because